Hello, y'all. This is Evan Lindsay. I am the Jackass from the Jackass Podcast, and this is episode 4. Um, this week we're going to be talking about the conflict with Iran and the missile attacks that happened and what their response was, which is understandable. Some Texas laws about education, which are really interesting, and I'm wanting to see how that's going to affect the actual classroom and see how much of it is actually going to stick. For sports, we're talking about Game 7s, how that is one of the best things in sports to watch. I would hate being a person in Game 7 sometimes, but it would be really cool. Also, wrestling, we're talking about some of the storylines that have been building up. And we're also going to talk things that I find entertaining now, like podcasts, stuff that I like watching, how my entertainment has kind of changed over the years. So today, that's what today's podcast is going to be about. So first thing first, we're going to talk about the U.S. government attacking or Donald Trump making the decision to attack the 3 nuclear sites in Iran. Now, as long as I can remember, there's always been something about the Middle East and nuclear sites. Saudi Arabia, they thought they had nuclear stuff. Iran, forget how they got it, but it wasn't too long ago. It was like in the past decade, there was a deal made about the nuclear sites and stuff. And am I shocked that Trump went this route? No, because I saw a TikTok today where it showed like acts of war, acts of aggression that didn't get congressional approval, all the way from the Korean War to the Vietnam War to Kosovo, Serbia with Barack Obama. And while every one of them have their detractors, I think we are now a lot more emotional about it than we were way back when. I think that people that were, and I've said it before already on this podcast, people are being too emotional when it comes to politics. I understand that we have been, um, that we attacked a country, and it could be looked at for a couple of reasons. One, because of their political allegiances or their allegiances to terrorism could be a reason. The fact that they're building nuclear stuff in the Middle East, let's be honest, oil may have something to do with it too. It's still an oil-rich country. It is. It's just one of those things where that whole Middle East is so oil-rich that they have some control over the rest of the world for all the oil that we need from the rest of the world. And just seeing that this wasn't really a surgical strike, and that Iran, of course, came back saying, now you've blown up diplomacy. You don't understand. I think everybody takes Trump as not really understanding what's going on. And everybody takes every flaw or thing that was not a full success for Trump and makes it like oh well, he's such a fool, such this, such that. He wasn't a politician. He just wasn't. He was a businessman. So he views decisions that he makes like a businessman would. He's not like a lot of politicians where he's a lawyer. No, he was trying. I won't even say he was the world's greatest businessman, because you can make the same argument about the likes of George W. Bush. Because I remember when he was being elected, everybody talked about how he ran the Texas Rangers and they'd gotten rid of Sammy Sosa and all that stuff. But running a country, yes, is different than running a business. But you have to take in the perspective of whoever the person running the country is. He got voted in because we did not want, those people that voted for him didn't want traditional politicians, didn't want the likes of a Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden anymore, Kamala Harris, even Barack Obama to a point. But Barack Obama, yeah, he was a politician. He was a senator, and he's from Chicago. He did some political work. I think he went to Harvard Law. So he was a typical politician that you see in DC. He's someone that could manipulate the laws. He would understand what he was doing, and he could help pass it through the Congress. he had those kind of connections. Trump is Trump, yeah, he's an outsider to a point. And I think every once in a while we need that outsider. The last time we really had one in government that everybody still talks about is Andrew Jackson. Do I think he's going to be as well liked as Andrew Jackson? No, because Andrew Jackson also was a general and he was a leader of the War of 1812. I don't think he was like the most revered leader, but he was at least a military guy. So I think that we have to look at Trump, and hopefully this was from his advisors, and he listened to his advisors, and he said they made this the whole big plan of action. That him and the people from the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs all basically said, this is our best option. Because we all know that there's data that we do not have at all times that the government probably does, or should have at least. There's plenty of things that we may never know about. And this isn't even just like, don't take this as me being a conspiracy theorist. I've hung around enough military people, heard enough stuff that tales of top secret stuff that's probably already past this classified range that I heard as a kid or got to see a little bit of as a kid. Not that they showed me documents or anything, but just hearing stories of missions or stuff that was top secret when they were doing it. Like my grandfather was a person who helped figure out how to drop boats to land them in the water from a C-130. Help figure out how to drop like helicopters and stuff to land them right, so you didn't have to do much mechanical work from a C-130. So I heard stories like that. And so I'm going to make the presumption that they have a lot more information than I do. That is what I think is happening. And I don't think we have all the information. Because, and if you want to say, well, we should have more, well, then let's get people who cover the news and are actual journalists instead of people like me who are just spitting their opinion on every channel. If you want to talk about how, like, we have information at our fingertips, we don't know what's actually true. And a lot of us don't trust any of the journalists that we see on TV because they have proven that they're more biased than they are journalists now. So I think that this action, I want to see what the reactions are and what the end game is for this action in Iran. I'm not going to sit here. I don't want to have a knee jerk reaction. So that is that's my take on Iran. I actually have a question that I'm gonna ponder for a second. And does war help the U.S. economy like it used to? Like back when after World War II, we had this big economic boom because we produced the vehicles, the food, all that stuff that we produced during that time frame gave a big economic boom to those industries because the war was in effect. It's what helped get us out of the Great Depression. It's what has helped get us out of some other times when we needed help in the economy. There's part of me that feels like we don't manufacture enough of the stuff that we use, or we don't have enough pride in it in those industries anymore to make that economic boom happen. And we've been continuously at war since the late 90s, since 2001, just continuous and continuous and continuous. And we're not making quality stuff. We're just trying to make quantity for the biggest buck that these companies can get. So that's just a question to ponder. I do not know the answer. I don't believe it's helping us as much, but it might be because those are some big companies that have those contracts. But again, I don't think that it's helping us as much. But I'm not an economics major. This is just a gut suspension. I think that we need to get back to being strong, manufacturing our stuff, and actually doing the right type of R&D for the stuff we want. I don't think you need companies who are trying to make the most money so you don't get the best products. And people who have government contracts sometimes don't do the best work and cut corners so they can make the most money. Because we're a capitalistic society, and I get that. That's my opinion on that. But if you disagree, let me know. Like, just kind of let me know what's going on. All right. Now, if y'all if y'all haven't realized by now, I'm an educator and I'm a coach. So this is the reason that we have education every podcast, and we will to probably every podcast that I do by myself or with one of my guests, because education is important to me. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but I think everybody needs to be smart enough and well informed enough to actually make adult type decisions on stuff that they have, whether it's political stuff, whether it's how they're going to handle life in general, bills, everything kind of like that. So, one of the things we need to talk about is how I've complained about the funding, and I don't want to complain that much more, but I want to see how the funding affects like my district, who hasn't had their school board meeting. I think they have it on Tuesday, and then we'll see what they do with the required raises and how they're going to do that. Hopefully, they give the support staff some raises too, um, like the IAs or teacher TAs, however you want to put it. They need some more pay. Also, I'm wondering how one law is going to actually be able to take effect, because it deals with separating church and state. If you don't know, Texas decided to make it a rule to put some biblical material in public education in the early grades, like the elementary grades, and require that every classroom hang up the Ten Commandments. While I am by no way an atheist, I'm also not the most religious person in the world. I do try and abide by the Ten Commandments as much as I can, but I don't think it's our place in education to preach the morals more than support the morals of different people, because you have to realize that not every kid that's going to walk through a school door is going to be someone who was raised by a religious family, and it's becoming less and less, or at least to me, as time goes on. People are getting away from the church. They don't believe it. I know some people got in trouble for like preaching scripture in school, not even really preaching, just what they believe. I had a kid get mad because I referenced Jesus Christ him thinking he was Jesus Christ one time, like he was perfect. He's like, well, you can't speak about religion. Well, I wasn't really. I was speaking as the written character we talked about Jesus Christ to be. Now, I believe Jesus Christ is the only person that's ever been written around that was perfect. So, and if that's the only one, yeah, that's what I believe. I also believe in what he said and what many people have said, do unto others as you would have done unto you. And that's how I treat people. And that's how I expect to be treated. If you want respect from me, give it first, and I'll give it first, and I'll be kind and cordial. But if you start acting like an ass with me, I'm gonna act like an ass back. And this is what I tell my kids every year. And I'm so that they understand that I'm the type of person that you're really gonna deal with when we get back when you get into the real world. My my favorite thing about that is eventually the kids, if you're honest with them from the get-go, respect it and end up liking you and like will fight for you, because they know that that's how you truly are. I try and treat everybody with the same respect that you're going to give me. I don't like if you're going to be disrespectful to somebody and then you're going to go bitch because someone's disrespectful to you. I don't think that that's how you should be acting. And that's what causes a lot of troubles in schools is nobody holds there's a lot of people who don't hold their children accountable. And I don't want to say a lot. Like we'll say like 10 to 20% depending on the school. Because most parents either really like 10 10% hold their kids really accountable and that's what they do and they're like we're gonna hold them accountable. There's not like they're gonna do this. And then the other like or I'll say 20% because I think it's 20% of kids are always going to kind of listen to you no matter what the class is. 70% are going to follow whoever's actually taking the lead of that class, whether it's the teacher or it's the delinquent students. And you're always going to have like 10% in there that are delinquent on average. So throughout a whole day, you may have some classes really good and you may have some classes with a whole lot of knuckleheads in it. But if you come across as being honest and at least fair in what you do, most kids don't give you that much fuss. You're going to have some that are just defiant. You're going to have some that are just going to be this way. But I don't think we need to put the 10 commandments up in a public education classroom. Now, if you want to send your kid to private school and it is a faith-based private school, go right ahead, please. That's where that should be. In our government, there has to be a separation of church and state. For one reason, because we don't have a national religion. Just like we don't really have a national language, we don't have a national religion. Now, most people who are religious in this country are usually some form of Christianity, and then probably Jewish, and then Muslim, and then whatever other religions there are, like the Buddhist, the Hindu. I don't know all of them, so I'm not going to speak on all of them. Those are the ones that I know off the top of my head. And you get to see how all this goes. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I also don't think it's going to be able to stand because someone's probably going to put a lawsuit. It's going to go to Supreme Court and it's going to get overturned because it's unconstitutional. But let's see how this rolls this school year. I got about a month and a half till I have to be back in the classroom. I got a little over a month and a week until I can actually go like set up my classroom. So we'll see how that flies. Now, there's an interesting thing, and this is really local for San Antonio people. My district is the largest in town, and they have decided to basically, they had been tight. Like most districts here are tight on what their boundary is. Because San Antonio is, to me, weird in that it doesn't have one consolidated school district for the whole city of San Antonio. There's like 10 school districts in San Antonio. And we're not going to include the ones that are on the base. But there's like 10 school districts in San Antonio that are all separated. So depending on where you're at in town, depends on what school district your kid goes to. And then, of course, depends on what school and all that. But there's a whole bunch of class distinction. And some of the older districts are getting kind of pushed out because they're more in the center of town and they're not building a lot of new stuff. So the district I'm in is like on the far west side of town. And if you don't know San Antonio's geography, we're a weird city. It's not really on a grid. Some roads don't make sense. And I love this town. But some of the places, like I can go down one road that'll go from downtown and kind of do a half loop all the way about 10, probably 10 miles down the same highway. And when you do that half loop, it's got like 4 different names on the road. There's some places where like just the way the name changes. It's just really strange sometimes. So, but the area of town I'm in that has been building up for so long. So I'll give you an example. When I graduated high school, there were like 12 or 6 or 7 high schools when I graduated in 2001. When I came back to like now 25 years later, they've added 6 more high schools. They've doubled the size. They've doubled the high schools, doubled the elementary schools, and doubled the middle schools. So now we have 100 plus schools in our district from like 50, and most of them went outside, probably more to what you would call the suburbs in a lot of places, outside the loops, because that's where new houses started being built, people started living, and stuff like that. That happens to a lot of major cities. So Northside or my district kind of keeps up with like the west side of town from US 90 to I-10, and basically just kind of inside 410 to outside 1604. And sometimes the reach goes to the next small town or just south of it or just west of it, um, or east of it. And it's a weird boundary. So they decided to open up their boundaries to students outside of it. And I'm just really curious on what's going to happen with this. Like, how's that going to impact the schools here? How many kids do they think that they're going to get added to the school? Like, I wonder what they're projecting. And I'll probably hear about it in August. They'll give us the projections, probably what they think's going to happen or what's already happened by the time our convocation rolls around in August. So, but that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, really? This is what we're going to go with. Um, so I just want to see how that's going to affect us as a district. I wonder how that's going to affect the sports too, and see what kind of talent. Because there's I know there's strict rules for the public side of it with UIL that that doesn't allow you to like recruit. I know that you can get kids. There has to be paperwork saying that you didn't recruit and stuff for UIL. There could be sanctions from the UIL if you don't abide by that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm wondering how it's going to affect all of the schools. Now, so it's Sunday. Game 7 of the NBA Finals has not been played yet. I'm wondering how this game's going to go. First off, the fact that you've had a bunch of close games, like 4 of the 6 games were close, and then there were 2 kind of blowouts, one for each side. I want to see, because OKC is going to be at home. I want to see if SGA and Chet Holmgren and Williams can handle being the stars at home and make the big plays for OKC to win a championship. While really, I'm kind of rooting for Indiana. It's a franchise that hadn't had a championship. It's a franchise that's been around and has had big playoff moments that you can't tell the history of basketball without, especially in the Reggie Miller era. Like, you couldn't tell the story of basketball, like really tell it without those details of like Indiana and New York. I like Rick Carlisle as a coach, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. I don't even know the name of the OKC coach, but who's going to coach their team better during the game and make the decisions to see how their team stands up for the moment. I'm a huge Spurs fan. I think it was only the Detroit series that went 7 games. And I remember just how close that series was. I remember how series was just a hard one because they were both defensive teams. I just remember, like, how are they going to, like, how are you going to stand up in this moment and the end of it, and it's the perfect finality. Like, it'll be very, very beautiful to see how this game ends. Because traditionally, game sevens are close or have been. They're decided in single digits. Um, it's probably going to be a low scoring game because the moment everybody's going to be hyped up, everybody's going to be feeling good about this game. I just want to see how it goes. I don't really have a dog in the race. I don't have a pony in the race. I just want to see how, if OKC can respond to that last punch where they didn't close out the game, because they could have closed out the series if they had showed up with the same intensity that Indiana showed up with. I think OKC by far is a more talented team, but I think that there's more dog and fight in Indiana. I think they probably make better basketball plays. Right now, I think they've been coached to make better basketball plays. So we'll see how that goes. I just want to see, and it should be a good game tonight. I'm gonna try to watch as much of it as I can, and we can talk about it next week. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is the Kevin Durant trade that happened this morning. As a Spurs fan, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I'm so happy he didn't go to Spurs. Like, not to knock Kevin Durant's talent, not to say anything bad about him, but I grew up watching homegrown teams do something. And the Spurs have they have some good players, and then you have Wembanyama and Castle, who are going to be two young, really, really good players, and De'Aaron Fox, and to see how they meld after a training camp, not just kind of being pushed together, and see how that works. See what the Spurs do in the draft too, because that should be coming up like next week or two. Because evidently, from what people have said, the Spurs have not wanted to give up that number 2 pick. I think they want to get Dylan Harper, and I think that would be cool. I'm not worried about like the Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag may be the dude that's coming out of this draft, but I'm not gonna sit here and go, I'm disappointed the Spurs get Dylan Harper. I don't. I think that they can play a unique version of small ball. I don't think they have to have a traditional four. I think with Wembanyama and his range on defense, at least over the next couple of years, like his range on defense, and then they can spread the floor. They can do five outside the 3-point line, and then just play cut basketball. Because Wembanyama's a good passer too, so you can play off of him. Kind of like he's kind. I think he's a more effective defensive version of what KD is. Maybe not as good of a shooter or a pure scorer because KD doesn't need a lot of shots. Kevin Durant does not need a lot of shots. Do I hate that he's going to the Rockets? Kind of. But I think the Rockets gave up young talent and one of their dogs to get him. So I don't know if I would have gone that route. I think with that trade happening, I have a feeling Phoenix may be better than what people think next year. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be a playoff team next year with that kind of young core of Devin Booker and Jalen Green. Bradley Beal's a good player, but I don't know how great of a big three that is. But I think he can play off of them. I think he'll probably be more like the Chris Bosh type of like the big three from Miami, in that he doesn't have a lot of a lot of what's it called? A lot of a lot of. I just don't think he's got as much spunk as some other superstars. I know he gets paid like one, but I don't think he's got that same type of spark. So now, the next thing I'm going to tell you who I think who I think the top 5 quarterbacks for fantasy are going to be next year. And I'm looking on a list. I'm gonna be honest. It's a Q list based off of sleeper fantasy sports. Um, and I'm gonna say what I think next year. I think Purdy's gonna take a step back. I don't think Stroud's gonna take a step back. I think he's gonna take a step up. So I'm gonna say Stroud at 10. Um, we'll say Stroud at 10. I think Jordan Love at 9. Baker Mayfield at 8. I want to say Jared Goff at 6. Joe Burrow at 5. Oh no. Let's say 7 is Goff. Joe Burrow at 6. I think Patrick Mahomes will still be 5. Then uh, I think it'll be Jaden Daniels. Then Jalen Hurts. Then Josh Allen. And I think fantasy wise, Lamar Jackson is one of the best fantasy football quarterbacks. And that's just because he can run. Like all of them can run, but I think Lamar Jackson's in the most effective offense for him just to run. I think they use that a little bit with Jaden Daniels. It's surprising, even looking at this list, I'm like I think Dak's gonna take a step up. I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields is outside the top 10 because I think he's finally seen it. I think Dak probably will sneak in the top 10 at some point in time just because he's got an offense around it and he's always been a good fantasy quarterback. I think he's been like a top 10 fantasy quarterback anytime he's made it through a season. So that's what I think's gonna happen. I'm hoping Dak is top 5 in fantasy versus top 10, just because I think Dallas's offense, even though it's probably gonna be a little bit more run heavy, I think that it's gonna be have a lot more open shots downfield with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson. I think Josh Allen is one of those quarterbacks that it almost doesn't matter the receivers. He can make them look good. He can get that ball to their hands as long as they can catch it, and he'll catch them in stride. So him being a top 5 quarterback is not surprising. Lamar Jackson has gotten better in his passing. He's still effective as hell with his legs. He's just dangerous all around. And then you add Derrick Henry to the backfield, and that would be a headache that I would not want to face as a defensive coordinator, trying to figure out what are we doing. Uh so that's what I think. So you can go and see just how much. Hopefully I'm right, but I won't even swear that I will be right. And this is way too early because we haven't even really seen a training camp yet with some of these that have new offensives coming in. I'm excited to see some new offenses. I hope Dallas does a lot of movement with its receivers instead of just setting them one place like they have in the past. They had more movement last year, but I think they could have a lot more. I think they could have a lot more sets with their tight ends and just the way they could block. I'm excited to see what that running back group's going to do. For some reason, I think Rico Dowdle's not going to be on that roster. Not with like Javante Williams, Mike Sanders, and Blue. I think they're going to have a whole new running back room, and I'm betting. I'm so willing to bet that Blue is going to be like the breakout rookie or offensive rookie of the year candidate from the running back spot. If that line is half as good as I think it could be, this could be like another Hall of Fame line for the Dallas Cowboys eventually. If they can just figure it out, say by game 3, 4, like blocking schemes and timing of the blocking scheme, I think that will I I really think that they'll have a good offense. Now, I think Texans gonna have a good offense with CJ Stroud. I'll be honest, there's a lot of teams I get where I have CJ Stroud as like one of my starting quarterbacks. He is a really good player. I'm not a huge Texans fan, but they've developed weapons, and then I know I think Diggs left, but they brought him in a weapon. He's going to use his weapons. I don't think, and they draft well. They've drafted well at certain positions. So that's what I think. I think they're going to do well this year. So that's my fantasy talk for right now. So next up, I want to talk about wrestling, and we're going to talk about the storylines of wrestling. I love watching the John Cena CM Punk storyline, man. That storyline has just been so fun and nostalgic, and it was a quick build storyline. And they can do it. They're both all time greats on the mic. They're both all time greats at getting people in the seats and having you care about the match, especially since they have such a rich history of their matches. To me, John Cena's got like he's got 6 big rivalries. As I'm sitting here thinking about, I keep adding, but he's really got 6 big rivalries. To me, his top rivalry is probably him and Edge, then him and Randy Orton, then him and CM Punk, um, him and The Miz, of course, him and The Rock. But him and The Rock just have a that's a like all time classic. But and then Cena and Batista, they were always classic storylines. You're always gonna have something that you got hooked into to those storylines. They would push each other, and they were able to push the storyline, and it was believable in that soap opera believable way that wrestling is sometimes. But you would believe it. You get lost in that story, and it was always so great. So it's so great that on John Cena's last run, you're getting glimpses of what the rivalries that made him great, one of the greatest of all time. And you can't deny that as a sports entertainer and maybe not the wrestling worker, but the guy who got your asses in seats, the guy who held that company together during a total lull in loving wrestling. The PG era, he was a perfect baby face, and to see him make like bookend his career with another heel run. Because if you don't know the history, John Cena came in as kind of a baby face, and then turned when he got his gimmick of being the rapping white guy, turned that into being a heel, and it became being a cool heel. And so you get rhymes and old school type stuff just off the top of his promos, and it worked for him. It fit him. So, and just boogieing out with this kind of awesome. I get to play the villain. I get to blame the fans. I get to be the heel that no, be a realistic heel and have a reasonable gripe, but deliver it so well has just been fun to watch. And speaking of that, I said this was like a short build storyline, but WWE is getting really, they have constant little storylines that have long drawn out things now. And it's been fun to watch. The one with Jacob Fatu and Solo Sokoa has just been fun to watch, and everybody's waiting for Jacob to turn on Solo, and rightfully so. And so I love that storyline. I love the storyline with like Jey Uso and Gunther, and Jey Uso right now with Cody having that match coming up. Like there's so much they've built all these storylines that can have branches off of them, and they got the people with talent enough to do it. I want to see where the Seth Rollins storyline goes, especially with the Money in the Bank. When's he going to cash in? Who's he going to cash in on? Is it going to be a thing where Cody beats John Cena and then Rollins cashes in on Cody? That could always be a possibility. I just love seeing these because it reminds me of when I was a kid. You'd have storylines like the big storylines would last months because you didn't have a pay per view every month. You had a pay per view. You had the big four pay per views when I was a kid. You had the Royal Rumble that led into WrestleMania. Then you had SummerSlam and Survivor Series. And then when the Monday Night Wars happened, they started doing pay per views or PLEs every month. So the storylines got rushed. Now they use those things and slow down the storyline. They've also stopped defending the title like every week, but they built those titles up to actually mean something. So I love it. Those championship titles have done great. Speaking of storylines that I'm loving, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte. I want to see if they make this a tag team or is this going to be a fight somewhere down the road. Do those two have a history and just the nuanced victory of Alexa Bliss just doing that Sister Abigail DDT and getting the three before Charlotte got the tap. That was beautiful. The fact that they helped each other out this week was kind of interesting. I just like seeing where it's going because that could be a hell of a tag team, and that could be a tag team that actually helps bring up that division. Because I think they're it's trying to make tag teams relevant again, the men's side, and I don't think they figured out how to make work all the way around for the women's side yet. I think they need to start working on that because I think you actually have to have when Sasha and Naomi won it. That was a good one. When Sasha and Bailey won it, that was good. Like that made it strong. That made it seem like something. When Alba Fire and Isla Dawn had it, that was a good tag team to have it. I know WWE traditionally has not valued tag teams much, but it is, dude, when you have good tag teams, I always remember the good tag teams from when your runs were really good. Because remember, not only did you have single stars in the Attitude Era, you had like 4 or 5 tag teams that were always fighting for the belts. And they were strong tag teams. And then maybe eventually they broke off. In the 80s when Hogan was winning, they had a strong tag team division too. So I think sometimes tag teams have gotten a bad rep, but you have to have a strong tag team division because then it also helps bring up some of the next single stars. I think they just need to. I don't even think they need to revamp it. I think they just need to rebuild it through storylines, and they're trying on SmackDown for sure. They're kind of trying on Raw, but SmackDown they're showing more of an effort to try it. I think that's what they need to do with the women's division, especially as many women as they have now, and you have Evolution coming up. So that's what I think. Like as far as storylines go, it's been fun to watch. I enjoy it, and I actually get lost more than I have in a while in wrestling. And y'all can say, and yes, in the comments you can put, yeah, it's fake, but you know what? Those storylines are really, really good. Those things aren't the storyline of wrestling. Man, you gotta give them credit. If they can get you, and when they're really good, they're really good. Now, will I admit there's some dumb storylines? You know what? We may go over that. We may go over some of the dumbest storylines I ever remember seeing, and we can agree on it. But and then we'll get top 10 storylines that I loved following. So I don't know, but don't knock one of my favorite things to watch. All right. And the last thing, speaking since this is my form of entertainment, and I love, and I hope y'all are entertained with this on the Jackass podcast. I have caught myself a lot more in recent years, listening to a lot of podcasts. For most of my life, I was like a music and sports guy that would pass my time. But like when I get on flights or I'm going long distances, because I use music as a timer a lot of times in my head, it makes my flight or something seem longer. So I started listening to podcasts, or it makes my drive feel longer. So I started listening to podcasts because I love listening to conversation. And we can find like a really good conversation. Oh, it's so good. This week, like I caught myself this morning watching the Board Teachers podcast, which is a podcast I love watching, and watching Burt Kreischer one where he's cooking, but he's got Robert Irvine and Gail Kim on it. That's the kind of stuff that I watch, and I'll watch hours of it. I'll watch hours of clips, like podcast clips, come across my TikTok all the time. So it's and sometimes I'll get me to go watch a podcast. Like I love watching. Like I used to love listening to the Jim Cornette podcast. Kind of changed, went from him telling so many stories about his history in wrestling to him just bitching about like what wrestling looks like today, which I guess a lot of people like, and I would enjoy listening to it. But his goes on for hours at a time, so you have to really commit to listening to it. And there are days where I'm like, nah, I don't want to listen to him bitch all the time. But I love Jim Cornette. He was one of the greatest managers. Just sometimes what he's bitching about, because he's from an old school type thing, and I get what he's bitching about, but they they need to. He doesn't need to stop. 'Cause I'll still listen every once in a while. Like I'll find clips on YouTube and listen to some of his 10, 20-minute clips, and those are always fun. The other thing I found myself watching on TikTok are the Reddit stories. Like I've watched a lot of the "Am I the asshole" stories that they do from Reddit stories, but some of the stories from Reddit about how people have just got messed over by family. Oh my lord! I think I'd be in jail with some of these stories of me just wanting to punch people as an adult. Because like some of these people who handle this stuff, if it's true, man, that's some cold, calculated stuff. I don't know if even I would have the patience for that, and I'm the patient one of my friends. I do not know. Some of 'em cold, man, and just having like they're prepared and cold, expecting this crap to happen. So, but I must say those have been some of the things that I've been entertained with recently. I do love following it. My entertainment's changed a lot. Like I only really watch a few shows, or I'll watch like right now because I'm a teacher and I'm on kind of on summer vacation. Uh, will I'll catch myself like I'll go watch a series of movies and stuff, and then when I'm just bored of watching the movie, I'll go find something on YouTube, watch clips. I've actually started watching clips of like mechanic fails, or these mechanics tell you why this is wrong and stuff like that. Kind of interesting to learn, but it's just funny to me. I've been around people who are mechanics all my life, so it just wasn't my thing. But I can learn to fix stuff. I learned to do stuff. So I think that's cool. So that's kind of what my entertainment value's been. If y'all have like any suggestion for wrestling podcasts, sports podcasts, I do listen to the Pivot. I watch clips of like Club Shay Shay. I watch clips of Stephen A. Smith's podcast. I like listen. I like I'll sit down and watch an episode of Pivot. I'll watch clips of Joe Rogan all the time. I haven't sat down and watched a lot of his unless it's a guest that I like. Burt Kreischer's, unless it's a guest that I like, I don't really flip them on. But I do love listening to it or seeing the clips and seeing if it interests me. And there's some others that I just love watching the clips. I watch a lot of YouTube or TikTok clips, especially on podcasts. So I hope that y'all have enjoyed my podcast. This is the Jackass Podcast. I am the Jackass Evan Lindsay. Y'all have a good week. Next weekend we'll talk, and I'll make sure we talk about like how I like celebrating 4th of July. I'm not giving up that. I don't care what people say. If you don't like it, tough. All right. Y'all have a good one. Have a good week.